Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share some of the experiences that I had as a child pertaining to everything that I just spoke of and was lucky enough to share with you. And I feel that the first thing I can probably share with you as a child that happened with me was my dislike for aggressiveness. I did not particularly get along well with my father because he was very Latin, very much into sports, very much into boxing, the typical manly, what I would call aggressive type behaviors. And it was just nothing I wanted to be akin to. I didn't want to be a part of it. I had no inkling from a small child to participate in any of this. And some people might say, well, it's because you're a homosexual or you're bisexual or you already knew it. And to squash that at the very beginning, let me just say that every soul is sexless. It really does not matter what your physical feature might be. Every soul is sexless, but we align with particular frequencies and energies at any particular time within our life, at any particular time. There are many people who align with masculine within a female body, and there are many people who align with feminine within a masculine body. I was told at one point that I was according to the Native American, a sacred androgyne because I had balanced both male and female. But I think balancing and acknowledging the non-sexualness of the soul really does just come with the awareness of who you are. So whether you're gay or you're straight or whatever, it's what you align with, and that's fine with you. That's fine. I will say that it's not fair to say that sports is a manly thing. To me, it's just aggressive. It's competition. It's combative. It's combative behavior. And nothing against people that like sports. I mean, if you like sports and that's how you use your diversion, that's fine. However, for me, I find it very combative and very violent, and I choose not to be a part of it. But enough of that. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Some of the other experiences, and one of the first experiences that I had as a child with the paranormal, with understanding that something was not quite right, it's not that it's not quite right, it was very right, was the fact that there was a ghost, a demon, a not-so-nice trans-dimensional entity that would visit me. And this started probably when I was about 2 years old. And what would happen was it would always show up at the foot of my bed. It would always point its long, skinny, for lack of a better term, crony, like a crone, like an old crone, type thing, even though, we know that means wise woman. I don't want to get un-PC here. Maybe I do. However, the fact that this scary-looking thing was always waving its fingers at me and trying to call me into the closet. Now, I don't know what it is about closets and children, but it would always try to lure me into the closet in the middle of the night or whatnot. Actually, now looking back, I know that it was a portal or a transdimensional portal, something to that effect. Kind of like poltergeist. It's funny how Hollywood really uses these symbols. By the way, I'm 44 years old. This happened to me way before Poltergeist. So
you read the book.
Yeah, this was way before Poltergeist. Aww. And what had happened was, and one of the most profound experiences that I had felt at that time was the fact that I was sitting in I used to love watching television in my parents' bedroom because they had a color TV and I only had a black and white TV. Yes, I'm that old. We had black and white back then. And
Same here.
Yeah, right? So I preferred to watch television in my mother's room after school and watch my Scooby-Doo and whatever it was that I watched back then, the Flintstones and the Jetsons or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget that at the moment that my mother, by the way, my mother always made me SpaghettiOs. Yeah, I know, it's poison, but we didn't know better back then. my mother would always make me SpaghettiOs for an after-school snack. So she was just calling me to come out to the kitchen to have my SpaghettiOs when her closet door, she had a sliding door. I don't know if you guys know the old sliding doors. I don't know if they have them anymore. In her closet, and it flung open. And, of course, my curiosity was like, okay, I've got to go see what's going on. And I walked into the closet, and that thing, I was later told it was called a babushka, if anybody knows anything about Eastern European entities or whatever. But I was told it was a babushka. And she had the little, what we call a babushka, a little kerchief on her head and the ugly fingers and whatnot. And she grabs me, pulls me into the closet, and puts my hands in her mouth. And I thought she was going to eat my hands. Of course, I ran screaming, and I'm running to my mother screaming, what's going on? She has, I'm a kid with a bad imagination, whatever. So that was probably the first experience that I had. And as I got older and I met other psychics and other light workers and indigo elders and pagan elders and whatnot, I was told that she was a babushka, which is some kind of a demonic entity from Eastern Europe or whatnot, and she was trying to suck the power out of me. And that kind of resonated with me. It made a lot of sense. And so looking back, I can kind of resonate with that particular story and that definition of what happened. But that was one of the first that I can remember. Other experiences that I had, a profound one that I'll never forget was my first time slip. And basically what had happened is I was in my living room and I'm watching television, a movie. Back then we had something called On TV. It was before cable. And you had to buy this box and it would show you movies for like $50 a month, which was so expensive back then. It was ridiculous. But anyway, we're watching it was probably around the era of Grease, so it was probably Grease, the movie Grease. And me and my cousin are watching it in the living room, and he walks into the bathroom, and, they're saying the lines on the TV, and by then I probably already knew all the lines of Grease because I've memorized them by the time, the 30,000th time I watched it as a child. And I remember him walking out of the bathroom, and then all of a sudden I turn back around, and he's walking out of the bathroom again, and they're repeating the same line on the TV.
Wow.
So there was probably about a 3-minute slip there. And I've never really quite understood that. A lot of people have explained to me that it was probably some type of abduction, or a positive one, nonetheless. But some type of, transdimensional, you left your body, or they took you, and then they brought you back a couple seconds before it happened.
And how old were you then, B?
I was probably about 9 years old there, 8 or 9 years old.
Did it freak you out?
Not at all. I thought it was very cool. And I'm going to go on to tell you why I thought it was very cool. And the reason why I'm sharing these experiences with you, because I'm wondering how many of you out there are having the same experiences or have had them, maybe that you had forgotten that they happened, or that you just brushed them aside as childhood, hallucinations or imagination or whatnot. But they were very real, or I wouldn't be remembering them if they weren't very real. They were very profound, pivotal points in my consciousness development. And the reason why I say that it didn't freak me out was because even as a little kid, I was doing manifestation magic, instant manifestation magic. A very good example is I was riding around on my little two-wheel bicycle with the training wheels, when you're about 4 or 5 years old, and the chain broke. I remember being in the side yard of my parents' house, sitting in the laundry room on the stoop. We had a stoop outside the laundry room that was on the side of the house, and I'm sitting on the stoop crying over my chain breaking and going, oh, my God, my parents aren't going to buy me a new bike, da-da-da-da-da. What am I going to do? I want to use my bike right now. And let me just precurse this by saying I was a spoiled little brat. I was raised to be a spoiled brat. So when I didn't have my chain fixed, I was angry, I was sad, I was crying. Here I am, 4 years old, my chain broke, and something talked to me, and something said, just fix it. And what I did was I pulled the chain together, and I held it together, and I wished it to be fixed, and it was fixed. It literally materialized as a complete, whole, unbroken link chain. This is at 4 years old. Now, I don't have those powers anymore. I wish I did. I think we forget that we have those. But, again, that was just an example of this is not right. This is not normal. And it's funny because as I was growing up, I didn't know what a light worker was. I didn't know. I knew about reincarnation. I always felt I had been reincarnated. Another example of something that I did when I was a child was I picked up a deck of cards and would start doing readings with them. Regular cards, playing deck, with the spades and the clubs and the hearts and whatnot, and I knew how to read them. Nobody taught me. Somebody brought it up to me. They did me a reading. I picked them up, and the next thing you know, I'm doing readings for all the kids in the neighborhood. So this was something that was very natural. It was something apparently that I knew, probably that we all know, that those of us that are aligned in this particular aspect of consciousness and reality and this timeline that we're on, and we'll get into the timeline a little bit later. But these are just certain examples of what went on. Another, ever so quickly, the prophetic dream syndrome is a very repetitive event in my life. The prophetic dreams. I always had dreams about the plane crashes before they happened. I always had dreams about the deaths before they happened. And I'll share one personal one with you, which probably affected me the most and made me realize that I can prophesize as a child. I could prophesize. I'm sleeping, of course. Excuse me. Maybe I should have a sip of my soda here. And don't worry, it's ginger ale. But the dream basically was the dream itself was very lucid, very real. I want to state that right away. Very lucid, very real. I'm playing in my front yard in my big ficus tree that I always played in, and I saw them digging a hole in the front of the tree, like a deep hole. It turned out to be a grave. And I'm seeing everybody come out of the house, and everyone's, my family and my friends are all gathering around the hole, and I'm like, well, what are they doing? Meanwhile, I'm playing in my treehouse, And I come down, and I look into what I now know is a grave, and there's one of my cousins in the grave, and he's reaching out to me, and he's going, help me, I'm dead, and he pulls me into the grave. At that very moment, my mother is shaking my leg, waking me up in tears and in hysteria to tell me that my cousin had shot himself and he was dead. So these are the type of experiences I had as a child. I'm going to share one more with you, it's very personal. I will say it's very personal, and I don't know how many other people have ever done this type of behavior, because it's not normal for an 8 or 9-year-old child to do this. But I'll never forget and this again will go back to the whole stranger in a strange land syndrome. It was New Year's Eve. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, so what was that, 76, 77, something like that. Oh, 75, 76. Probably the New Year's Eve of 75, let's just say, for argument's sake. And I'll never forget, I'm at the neighborhood New Year's Eve party with all of my friends and, all of my parents and all their friends, and my parents' friends, I should say. And all of a sudden, I didn't want to be there. And not only did I not want to be there, I didn't want to be on Earth. I didn't want to be on Earth. I wanted to kill myself, for lack of a better term. And I went out to the road. This is very calm, an 8-year-old child, very calmly going out and laying out in the middle of the road and waiting for a car to run them over. The children that were the children around me were horrified. They're like, get up, a car's coming. I'm like, no, I don't want to be here. I want to leave this planet. And they're like, what do you mean you want to leave this planet? I'm like, I don't want to be on this planet. And, of course, the parents all had to come out, and there was a big ruckus, and that was probably the beginning of my reputation as the weird kid. But so you have to question, why would an 8-year-old child, do this? It's very, very, I mean, I can understand when I'm 20 years old and I'm high on cocaine or something, but an 8-year-old child, who's very happy and, has everything he's ever wanted. But again, these were just examples of I guess, anomalies or whatever, of a lack of a better term. I've always seen ghosts as a child. I always saw ghosts. We saw ghosts. I would see ghosts fly in and out of mirrors all the time. Didn't scare me. I was always very involved and drawn to magic and metaphysics and the occult and whatnot. I think
were your parents into this as well?
Not at all. Not at all. My father was very much against it. He, quite honestly, my mother's side of the family was a little bit involved in the Caribbean magic called Santeria, it's pretty dark stuff. I never saw it. I never was around it. I was never at a ritual or anything like that. But they dabbled, and my mother would sometimes have a saint and put like an apple in front of it. But my father would throw it out. He didn't want it in the house. He didn't want anything around it. He would find, a stick and a bottle of rum in front of it. He and my mom would just go at it. I don't want this stuff in my house. So, it wasn't like it was something that I was even allowed to do or allowed to think about. It
makes you think what happened in his life when he was little.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah. Well, he's very linear logical thinking, very, like I said, very male energy type stuff. But I will say that as I did get older, and I'm going to say this because yesterday was Father's Day, and I want to give my father some kudos, is that when I finally wrote my first college research paper, and it was on the history of witchcraft, he walked around with that paper and took it to all of his friends and showed him how proud he was of his son getting an A+ for writing his first research paper on witchcraft and metaphysics. So he was proud as can be that I became a metaphysician, even though it's very strange that I was never introduced to it. But anyway, so again, I wanted to share some experiences. Yes, of course, I've had, dozens, hundreds more experiences as I got older, my teen years, my 20s and whatnot, and, that's a whole nother show. But the reality of it is that we all kind of have these experiences that we are trained to forget, that we are trained to say, oh, that was a coincidence, that was, you don't have psychic abilities, you don't have healing abilities, you don't have manifestation abilities, you can't. And that is a par for the course, unfortunately, for most, if not all, light workers and indigos and crystals and whatnot. And again, I'm just going to use the term light worker as an umbrella term. But it's very much a part of that.